We are live. Soulbox
Yeah?
is in the building.
Box is live. Amongst Wolves, what are we singing?
We're not quite live.
Not quite
No,
live. It might take a couple of seconds. OTC, what are you saying?
Mine just says waiting for OTC.
Okay.
This strange.
Oh,
See a double screen,
yeah,
people.
live.
Oh
Amazing.
yes, we are live.
Oh, hello.
Building.
Okay, we're good fools.
We're live. We're good.
Look at that.
Right. Maybe what you need to do is mute your
Mine
phone.
says waiting for OTC.
Yeah, just mute your phones.
Yes,
We're
please.
all live. It's happening. Great.
Woo!
Yo!
We did it. Well done, Daniel.
Oh, yes.
I mean, I didn't do anything.
I'm so proud of you, Daniel.
It's the peoples that the gremlins in the building. That's Ian, isn't it? So I can't call him a gremlin. He's a superstar. Anyway,
We love you.
it's all suffered. Thanks, Ian.
Thanks, you Gremlin. Cheers, Gremlin.
Oh,
There we go.
he just looked at me and was like, "You calling me a gremlin?" Anyway,
Oh, Charlotte, yes.
guys, good to see you. How is everyone doing? I know we've got
Good man.
everyone doing.
Good. I'm doing all right. It's lovely to see you all.
Yeah. What have you been up to today?
We've been
Filming.
filming a video today.
I saw you guys filming. That was fun.
Yeah, we've been filming a video eating gross food. Everyone else is fine, pretty much, but I gag
You do
Oh
hard.
no.
It's grim. So that was fun, I guess, a bit. We got Mackies out of it though, so that was all right. Just to get rid of the stench, we ordered Mackies. So strong day.
We did some filming in public today, so I went out with one of the boys on my phone and had earphones in, and they basically just got me to do a load of ridiculous stuff in public, which
Nice.
was
That's amazing.
incredible. It was so fun.
When's that coming out?
On Monday, it's going to be part of our show on Monday, so
Oh, that's sick.
it's going to
Yes,
be really good.
guys.
That's
We've
wicked.
been filming as well. And it was one of those beautiful technology days where half our footage deleted. So we're going to do it
no.
all over again, which is going to be fun. But no, it's all good. We can bring it back. You're learning, aren't you? We've never done that. Apparently, we've never done this before. So apparently, it's hard work sometimes. But
That's brilliant.
That's hilarious. I guess I've been filming as well. We did this segment today called Youth Group Wars, which
Nice.
is coming out on Friday. So we had a whole bunch of youth groups from Manchester and beyond Manchester that joined in for some competitions. We're doing like a little competition for 4 to 5 weeks, and the prize is a £200 Amazon voucher.
ooh,
Wasn't pretty-
Hello.
Isn't it?
That's
That's
incredible.
For the youth group. For the youth group.
Oh,
For the youth,
wow.
they can use it
Nice.
whatever they want to, whether they want to, I don't know, buy a new sofa or maybe buy some dignity. Some of them got humiliated. Some
Nice.
humiliated on these youth group wars, but it's all good. So, right, so we're doing these sessions on Wednesday at 5 p.m. It's called a whole bunch of people joining in. I'm seeing some people. Hey, what's happening, everybody? That is on YouTube. Everybody here is on webinar as well. Shout out to you guys. Thank you so much for joining us today. So we're doing these sessions called The Higher Life. We've been doing a whole bunch of tours. And if you saw it at the very beginning, there was some footage of when we were actually able to do tours, because we are all in bands, right? You know, Gina, you're part of OTC. Sammy, you're part of Soulbox. Mark, you're part of Amongst Wolves, and I'm part of Brightline. And most likely you have seen all of us in your school. And you've seen us perform, and you've been to gigs as well, which is amazing. We miss doing that, but we've decided to do these sessions on the Wednesday just to understand a bit more about Jesus, right? Just to know what this crazy adventure is. What does it truly mean to be a follower of Jesus? Because I mean, all 4 of us, we follow Jesus, don't we? You know, we all love Jesus, and Jesus is such an important part of our life. So we just kind of want to share a bit about our stories, chat a bit about that, and I thought it would be really cool because we always talk about this thing called the gospel. That's a word that we use a lot here at work when we're writing music, when we have these conversations about following Jesus. We talk about the gospel, but the gospel is such like a big word and then a somewhat bizarre word. Not everybody really uses that word. So I don't know, Mark, can you just explain to us what the gospel is? What is the gospel?
Well, Daniel, you should know. That's kind of awkward if you don't. But it's real awkward. But I can explain it. Basically, gospel literally translates to mean good news. Like that's what the word itself literally means, and it encompasses a story that is the best news you can ever hear, because it's a story that tells you that you are loved. It's a story that tells you that you are significant, that you've been created for a purpose, that there is a God who isn't some weirdy beardy on a cloud, but actually passionately loves you. Like that's amazing, right? And it tells us this story of this God who gave up everything so that we could be in relationship with him, like giving up even his own life when we've screwed up, when we've done things wrong, giving in his own son, giving up his life to say, actually, you know what? Like, I love you this much that I would even die for you. Like that puts on a price tag, that puts on a level of value on everybody that is unbelievable. So when we talk about the gospel, when we talk about this good news, like it's something to soak in, it's something to really think about and go, oh shoot, like I'm worth that much, that the God that created everything would look at me, would look at you and say, you're worth everything to me. Like, it's the best news. And it literally translates to mean good news because it is good. That's exactly what it is. It's amazing news. It's news that sets us free, news that gets rid of our guilt, news that can restore a relationship with the God who created everything. Like, that's pretty good news. That's pretty good news for me, I think. Like, I love it.
That's sick. So I guess, so when we hear this good news, I mean, is there something that we need to do about it, or do we just, because I mean, when I get good news about something, sometimes I want to celebrate, especially if it's a friend of mine said, like, this has happened to me, like I know a friend of ours, Judith, got engaged, and that's pretty good news. And, and like, let's have a party, which I guess that's what we celebrate that. So hearing this good news, because the stuff that you're saying, Mark, is genuinely life-changing, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're going from just, I mean, and we talk about this, you're going from just existing, or even worse, we know we're going from being dead because of our rebellion against God to be fully alive. That's the opportunity to have true life. Then my question is, so what do we do when we are presented with this good news? When we find out, when we hear about this, what do you reckon we should do about it?
Well, again, another core thing about it is it addresses me. It addresses me and who I am. It addresses the stuff that I've done wrong. It addresses the things that keep me up at night. It addresses the things that hurt my head. It addresses the things that maybe I've done that have hurt people or hurt myself. And it says, actually, you know what? There's a God who loves you so much. He sees your potential. He says, you can be so much more than the life you're living right now. Like you're saying, you're going from dead to fully alive. Like God sees us in our situation we're in and says, that's not enough for you. You are worth so much more than that. Here's an opportunity to get the best life. And it's not about getting stuff, but there's gifts that come with it, right? There's things that come with it. And one of the main things is we get to be in relationship with the God who created everything. But it does, like you said, it requires action. It requires something to happen. And it requires us to say, you know what, all that stuff that I've done, all that stuff that has damaged relationships between me and myself, between me and my mental health, between me and my friends, between me and my family, between me and God, all those things that I've done that have damaged that, actually, like, I now have the privilege and the opportunity to be able to go, you know what, I want to leave that past behind me. I want to leave that hurt behind me, get to invite Jesus into our life right now so that we can say, I want to live for you for the rest of my days. Like, and that's the switch that has to happen, is it says, you know what, we recognize the brokenness, recognize the hurt, recognize the stuff that isn't quite right, or stuff that like that is in us that is broken, and we say, you know what, I recognize that, and I don't want to live like that anymore. And we get to invite Jesus into our life, which means basically being like, you know what, God, I can't do this on my own, but through God's strength, through who Jesus is, this perfect human, this perfect being, giving us access to his like arsenal of gifts, like peace, like love, like joy, like all of these things that can help us live that life that is that one step closer to God, that one step closer to Jesus, day by day by day, so that every single day we get an opportunity to say, fresh start, like, let's go again. And I want to be led by those principles of who God is. I want to be led by love. I want to be led by peace. I want to be led by everything that Jesus is, self-sacrificial, peace giver, warrior, like a fighter, someone who stands up for people who are oppressed, someone who stands up for that kid that's getting bullied, someone who stands up for entire cultures, for entire people, and says, you know what, these are the principles we live by. And it's a complete switch up to be like, I'm now going to live the life that I was always destined to have, which is the one that God's created you for. So there's a big switch, but it just starts that little movement of saying, I'm really sorry. Like, I'm sorry for that stuff that I've done. Come into my life so I get access to like, just like the world of more stuff that's even better and anything more than where we are right now.
That's really cool, man. Thanks for that. Man, there's this, and for those that want to, on the webinar and on YouTube, on whether you're watching it on LTC or maybe a Soulbox's page or Monk's Wolves page or even Brightline page, and you got questions, just this type of question in the comments, we'll read it and we'll do our best to answer those questions. And it's the same thing here on the webinar. If you got a question, just type it in the Q&A and we'll look at it and we'll answer those questions as well. But you know what, Gene, I'm gonna ask you this question because this is a really cool question. This is from someone called Lucy, and it says this: that how did you get into the gospel? How did you get into it? How did you start following Jesus? Like, I guess, what is your story?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Awesome. So I was brought up going to church. My mum always took us to church, maybe like once every month, once every 2 months. And I always felt like I belonged. I always felt very welcomed, very loved, very looked after. But long story short, my mum and dad split up, and about that time we just never went to church anymore. We sort of left all of that. And that was probably from the age of about 12 to the age of about 17 was this time when I just didn't go to church, didn't have anything to do with it. But every year I went to a big camp that my friend would invite me along to called Spring Harvest. And it would only be once a year, anything churchy, only once a year. But I'd go and I'd meet great people and I would hear things. I would hear the fact that, like Mark was sharing, that Jesus loved me, that Jesus died for me, that no matter what I've done, I still have inherent value. I'm still valuable. There's still a point of me being here. I'd hear all these things. And I believe at that moment that was God speaking to me. I believe that that's when God started speaking into my life and saying, this is for you, Gina. Like, this isn't just words from a person on a stage. Like, this is for you, because I'm telling you, I'm speaking through that person to tell you that you are valuable and that I know you. I know everything about you, everything you've ever done wrong, everything that you like about yourself, that you don't like about yourself. And I still love it. And I want to be a part of your life and I want to know you. So every year I'd come back from that camp and I'd be like, oh my days, like, I know this is for me. Like, I know this is God talking to me, but what do I do about it? So then, long story short, I go to university and I start to go to a church and just get myself surrounded by great people. And just start speaking to God, just starting a conversation with God and being like, if you're there, if you're real, show up, like, let's do this.
Sick, amazing, man. So cool. So cool. Well, I asked this question last week to Jacob when we did this, and I'm going to ask you the same question, Sammy. What do you think, when people, especially when talking about Christianity and following Jesus and that kind of stuff, I feel like sometimes people have misconceptions of what it means to follow Jesus. What do you think are some of the misconceptions that people have about following Jesus and about Jesus himself?
On like a relatable level, because like I was brought up, my mum like loves Jesus. Like, I mean, since I was this small, like the woman would always tell me, like, she wasn't messing around. She'd be like, Samantha, he loves you. He has an incredible plan for your life, a purpose for you. So like, I always used to think, like, what is that purpose? Like, what does that mean? And then when I'd look at my friends, like, who weren't Christians, their life was popping off. It looked like they could have so much fun. Like, I just wanted to kind of like, I looked at them and then I looked at my friends at church and it was very kumbaya and all, like, I don't know, it was just like weird and it just looked boring. So I think one of the biggest misconceptions that I had was that Christianity is boring. I made a deal with God. I was like, if you let me have like my teenage years, like I always felt like God was real. So I wasn't messing about a little bit as well, because I was like, if you let me have my teenage years and let me have fun, and let me kind of have like some excitement and some like fun or whatever I was looking for in my life, then when I'm old, like Daniel's age, like old, like 30 around there, then I'll
Shots fired.
Wow. Not like that, Samantha.
Then when I'm old like that, then I'll come in and be about like the church life. But what that really showed me is that life that I was trying to live, it wasn't going to give me any of the stuff that I was looking for. Like, you go out, you get drunk, you chat to a boy, you like take drugs or whatever, and it's fun, it's exciting, but it's kind of like a bungee cord, and you kind of jump off, you feel great, but it pulls you back to where you started. And I'd look at myself and be like, I feel more hurt, I feel more lonely, I feel more like depressed and sad than I actually was in the beginning. And it got to the point where I was so low, and there was just no coming back. I had to go back to what my mum said. And she said, there's this guy, there's Jesus, he's God, and he loves you. He's got an incredible plan and purpose for your life. He can give you everything that you're looking for. And I had to stop and think, if this is real, if he can do that, then I've got to try it. And I became a Christian when I was 18, way sooner than I thought I would be. And my life since then has just been this incredible like adventure with amazing people. Like, you guys are my people, and I can't imagine my life on any way, shape, or form without you guys having been a part of that. And that was that part of like that big misconception that Christians don't have fun. Like, we have so much fun together, and we laugh, we do things together like outside of work, and it's like the greatest thing. And the best part is being able to live out my dreams in a way that doesn't expose me to an industry that's bad for me. But I get to do music, I get to chat to young people, I get to do all that stuff that I love to do in this protected environment where like all that other insecurity, what other pop stars and stuff have to deal with, I don't deal with that, because God has got this incredible plan for me and I'm living it out every day. So yeah, the biggest misconception is that Christianity is boring. I had to learn that the hard way. But yeah.
For sure, it definitely isn't, man. It is, and there's this sense of adventure, isn't it? You know, there's this guy that we work with, Tim, and he always goes on about like, man, this is the greatest adventure ever, because it is true. I mean, and ultimately, you look at, you see what Jesus said, right, in John 10:10. It says, you know, the enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy, right? And we see that, you know, in the world that we live in, and that's because of, like Mark was saying, that's because of that kind of rejection of God. That's because of turning our back. We see death, destruction, and pain and suffering in the world. But then Jesus says this, which is so deep, and Jesus says, I've come to give life so that you can live life in all of its fullness. I'm like, why wouldn't you want to live life to the full? Why wouldn't you want to live life to the max, especially by the one who created the world, that made all of this, and he says to you that you can live life to the full, life to the max. Man, and even you look in the Bible, and which we're going to be talking about in the next few weeks, this amazing book of some crazy stories, and you see this one particular story where this guy, is praying, and then God gives him strength, and he manages to run faster than a car and all that kind of stuff. It's just loads of like just weird stuff like that. I mean, even like, Jesus walking on waters, or you might like, man, there's no way that any of this is boring. Man, I enjoy putting myself out there. One of the things on my bucket list is swimming with sharks. Like, I am desperate to.
Yeah.
I don't get that. I don't get that one.
I get that. I want to do that.
It's like, why though?
What?
Just
Yeah,
sit
why?
with a
Why?
shark in the same water. It's mint.
Have you not watched Jaws? Did you not
Have you
catch
not
that?
watched Jaws? Have you not watched Jaws?
So like my last birthday, which is when I turned 30.
How
Emily,
old?
What was that?
Sorry?
You did, what?
my 30th, when I turned 30, Emily gave me a present, and one of the gifts was to swim in the Philippines, and I was just so excited that I was going to be doing that. But then COVID happened.
Oh, I'm sorry, mate.
I didn't swim with sharks. I didn't even go to the Philippines, and maybe it's God protecting me. I don't know.
I think so. I'd have to go with
Yeah,
that's
I'm
exactly
with
what's
that.
happening.
Nevertheless, that's what I want to do. But I love that kind of stuff. I love paragliding or jumping off stuff and then just kind of hoping for the best. It's just the adrenaline rush. I don't know. It's the adventure. I'm that guy who puts the GoPro on and then films himself doing stuff. But the whole sense of the Christian journey, it is a crazy adventure, because life in of itself, there's the ups and downs and the high mountains and the low valleys. But the thing is, and we talk about this, and I know I'll bang on about this, the thing is, in the midst of all that, we are not alone. You know what I'm saying? In the midst of the exactly, nice one, Gina. Plug of the Brightline merch right there.
Anytime.
But during the
I'm here for it.
during the mountaintops and during the valleys, there is hope, and we are not alone. And this is the adventure that we are asking people to join in. And this is the good news. The good news that we are not alone. The good news that we have life. The good news that that there is more to life than just breathing, than just existing, isn't it? But there's more to life. What would you say, Mark? What would be, thinking about this good news and thinking about this gospel, what would be that one tip that you would give to someone who's watching it? And then we will look at some questions. And I don't know if any of you guys have questions on your feeds on YouTube or anything like that. So if you have, throw them out. But what would be one tip you'd be like, this is one thing I really want you to know?
I would say, what have you got to lose? Like, what have you got to lose? Like, if you throw yourself in and you and you find a God who loves and adores you, what have you lost? Like, nothing. What you've gained is so much more. Like, I would say, like, my one bit of advice would be throw yourself in. Like it's the best opportunity you could ever have, because like we've talked about this stuff that, like, being able to put our mistakes, being able to put our hurts, being able to put our worries and our stresses down. But equally, there's a whole other side to this, which the Bible talks about eternal life, like, which we haven't even scratched the surface of, like, but that's a whole other part of this, is actually we get to be, like, with God in heaven, the most perfect place. We don't have a blueprint, we don't have a map of what it exactly looks like. All we know is that it's perfect. And, like, that's where I want to be. Like, I like perfect. That's great. That sounds good to me. That's a good description. Like, I'm fine with that. Like, whatever that looks like, great. Let's go. Like, so, like, there's that as well. Like, there is so much to this gospel. There is so much to this God that we will never be able to scratch the surface on Zoom, let alone in our own personal lives. Like there's so much of this stuff. So my one tip, I got distracted by how excited I got, but my one tip would be, like, throw yourself in. You have nothing to lose. Like, yeah, there you go.
Amazing. Thank you so much. One last question for you, and then we'll look at these questions. Sammy, do you think that the world needs good news? The world that we live in right now, do you think it needs good news?
There is so much bad news. Like, there's so much bad news in the world that we live in. Like, you turn on the news every single day and you're hearing this is happening. Like, I'm like one of my friends is calling me, there's another virus and I'm like, there's so much bad news surfacing everywhere. I think we definitely need good news. And the thing about, like, the gospel, there's good news that we love sharing with you guys is that it's like this message that will always be needed. Because as humanity, we will always need God. As humanity, like, we are so broken and we make so many mistakes. We will always need to know that there is somebody who loves us. Even with all that stuff being a thing, like, that's good news that I think anybody and everybody will always need to hear. Like, we definitely need good news. And that's why we do what we do, because we recognize that. And it was like at the beginning, Dan, when you were asking, I called you Dan. I never called you Dan. Lately, I've been calling you Dan. What's happening? It's because all your other friends call you Dan. That's what it is. I don't know if I like it. Daniel. When Daniel was chatting to Mark at the beginning and, like, said, like, if I hear good news, like our friend Judith's getting engaged, like, Daniel's an emotional guy, very emotional guy. He'll cry at anything pretty much. I kind of almost just can't wait for great life events in my life just so I can see him cry. So it's going to be fun. But, like, for me, it's like, as you guys are sharing and you're speaking about, what did you say?
Birth of your kid. You don't even
This
care.
is what I mean.
You just want to see me cry.
I'm excited. That's exactly. Anyway, next question. No, like, when you hear good news, there's this side of you that wants to just go and share it and be with and like let everybody know about it. Like, with the gospel, with this good news that we share about, it's like it is a edge of the seat thing. I'm on the edge of my seat as each of you were, like, chatting and speaking, because I'm like, this is amazing. It's so exciting. I want everybody to hear about it because it is that exciting. And I think it's one of those, just to quickly end with what, like, it's like the greatest and most simple, like, example of all time is that if I found a cure for the worst disease in the world, if I found it, why on earth would I keep that? I'm going to tell everybody. I'm going to, like, look, I found the cure for this disease and you don't have to have it anymore. Here it is. Like, we believe that we found the cure for brokenness, for loneliness, for depression, for all these different things. Like, there's this hope there's this hope, this person who loves you, that wants to be with you in that, and all those ups and downs of life. You're not alone. You know, there's this incredible news, and we want to share it with everybody because that's what good news is about. So yeah, man, you're gonna have me on this big massive rampage. Like, you need to take away the microphone from me because I won't
Preach that noise. Preach that noise.
stop.
Good, man. It's good. It's good. It's good. It's good. I'm going to ask a question for the people that are watching it. So if you're watching on OTC or Soulbox or Monks Wolves or Brightline or on the webinar, I'm going to ask you this question. You know, what parts of your life do you think that need good news? What parts in your life need good news? So let us know in the comments. Maybe type it out, and we'll end up praying for you as well, which would be cool. Someone asked, I don't know if you guys have had any questions on your lives. You have, yeah?
Yeah. Well, we've had a question come straight through onto our Instagram.
Okay, cool. Do you want to answer that, and then I can answer some of this?
Well, I want to put it out to the group because I feel like it's a really good question. And I don't know if you're watching, but your name, you know, when people put their names with like loads of letters, I have that on my Instagram. So I actually can't pronounce your name as much as I would love to try to. But we got a question saying, I would like to know where in the Bible does Jesus say he is God and he should be worshipped? And this person said, I'm a Muslim, so I believe he was the messenger of God and that he was a prophet, which is like so cool because Jesus, like to me, he was a messenger, he was a prophet, but he was also the son of God, and essentially he was God himself as well. And I guess it is such a good question because it is, where in the Bible does it say that? And I go back to when Jesus says, let me just get it up for you guys, in where Jesus says that I am the way, the truth, and the life. And he says, no one comes to the Father except through me. And that's in John 14, and it's in verse 5. And he says that, like he's saying, I am the way. He says, I am the truth, and I am the life. And nobody can get through to the Father except like through me. And for me, like the only being who exists who can say that is God. And even in other parts of the Bible, I don't know if you guys like want to expand on any things that you found in there. Like, that's a good indicator to me that Jesus like is literally saying that he is God.
And there's another bit as well in Matthew where Jesus says, "Who am I?" to his disciples, and they say, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." And he says, I think he says, like, it says Jesus praised them for this, to be like yes, that's who I am, you know. Like, so there's so many little nuggets of Jesus being like, and so many things that we'll never see because we're not reading the Bible through heavy Jewish context or in the original language. There's so many moments, like all the I am statements, you know, referring to that Yahweh, which is a name that God was called in the oldest times in the Bible, and then Jesus using that same phrasing to say who he is. There's so many little moments that we won't even be able to read on the surface, but as you dig deeper, you realize it's just like you said, you know, it's Jesus loudly proclaiming, like, he's God, like he's the Son of God, like, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you guys said it. There's loads of things that point to Jesus being who he says he was. I mean, and you see even in the Bible, you know, whenever there's like, I guess, like an angel or messenger, and then someone worships them, they're like, "Don't worship me. I'm like you. I'm not God. I don't deserve to be worshipped." But then there's this moment when Jesus, you know, comes back to life and he's in the garden, and then Mary worships him, and Jesus doesn't fight her, doesn't say, "Don't worship me," and that's again indicative that he is who he says he is, that he is God. And there's this verse I'm trying to get up before so I don't say it wrong, in John 8:24, and Jesus says, "For unless you believe that I am, you will die in your sins." And later the crowd tries to kill Jesus, and then he says this, "Before Abraham was, I am." So again, he's just using the same kind of terminology to indicate who God is. So I think there's loads of stuff like that throughout scripture, which we can go, and we'll probably go a bit deeper in the following weeks, that kind of point to who Jesus is. And because it's important, especially if we're talking about us following Jesus, it's important to know actually who is it that we're following. That's
Yeah, no, 100%, man. Thank you so much for sending in that question. And like, obviously, like you've obviously DM'd us, and feel free to like keep the conversation going and stuff. Like, we'd love to continue that conversation and hear what you have to say as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, thanks for sending that through.
Did you say you have one, Marco?
I had a comment saying that he likes my beard. So
We like your beard too, Mark.
Like your beard. Let me just see here.
Got a couple of good questions in the Q&A on Zoom.
Yeah, I'm just seeing that as well. All right, I think this one was for you, Sammy. Would you rather be as famous as Beyonce or do what you're doing now?
So like I kind of touched on it a little bit, but the thing is with like even if we just talk about music as a whole, so I love Beyonce growing up. It's really funny that you should say that. But I loved her. But when I deep it now as an adult and I'm listening to to the lyrics and the things that a lot of pop culture has to say, not all of them, but a lot of it, it's really negative. And all these like people are feeding into that, into this like culture that makes us feel like, even just as a girl, like I start to feel like I'm not worth anything. Like, I don't know about you, Gina, when you listen to music, but I'm like, oh, the only thing I can do is grow up, get a big bum, shake it about. Maybe a guy will like me, just maybe, because that's what music tells me. And then when you see what it has to say about like a lot of like males and stuff, it'll say like you guys have to go out, live an aggressive lifestyle, like sleep with so many people and do all this stuff. It's like so many things that are just not what life is about. And all these celebrities, they feed into this culture, which affects the way that we live as just human beings in general. And that was just like two examples, but like it's like we start to take on this way of living and think it's right, but it's not. And that living that doesn't bring you anything really. Like I said, for me, it got me to a point where I was just so broken and I felt so alone, and like so depressed within who I was as a person. And then I looked to what Jesus has given me, and like what we get to do when we go into schools and we tell young people, God loves you. There's an incredible plan for your life and a purpose for your life. And you see what that does for somebody. Like, I may never have the money and the status and all that stuff that Beyonce has, but I know for a fact that like I'm doing what I believe God has called me to do, which is to spread this message of good news and this hope. And like, I guess to answer your question, I would much rather do what I'm doing. And I hope that if it was ever offered to me, like I would be able to stand firm and say, do you know what, this is what I'm about. And I don't want to give into that. If I was ever to have that platform, I would want to spread some goodness and some life-giving lyrics and songs. And which is what we're about as bands here. So yeah, I hope that.
Going off like the back of that as well, this is like I'm really like just excited about talking about this kind of stuff, because for me, I studied music at university. I was this was when I wasn't really taking my faith seriously. I wasn't really following Jesus. I wasn't going to church that much. But it was first year of university and I was studying music, and I'll just gig all the time, like 2 or 3 times a week. I'll be gigging. It would be everything that I was about, like all my social media. It was Gina Atkins, the singer, Gina Atkins, the performer, and it just became everything, to the point when like I did not believe that I was worth anything without it. Like, if I wasn't gigging or if people weren't asking me about my gigs, then I just didn't feel like I had any value or any worth. And that was all before I started working like with a message as a part of OTC, and seeing that now, seeing how just accepting that in through the eye, like Jesus sees me as enough. Like, even if I never sang ever again, I would be enough. Like, if I never did anything else ever again, I would be enough, just because I'm here and I'm in a relationship with God. So all that to say, like, it's similar to what Sammy's saying. I definitely would rather do what I'm doing now, potentially have less recognition, but it actually
potentially.
I know, definitely have less.
Beyonce, we are coming for your fans. You know, we're getting up there. We're chasing you up.
I mean, you never know. But yeah, on a serious note, like, I am never going to be Beyonce, but I don't have to worry about like my whole identity being wrapped up in that. Like, I can just chill. If I have a day when I don't feel like I've done much, that's okay. Like, I'm enough. So yeah.
Just quick shout out to Alex Malcolm Smith as well, who's just DM'd. If you're watching this as well, I think me and Gina just like gave into that, because they were asking when and what made you get into a band. So yeah, we hope that answers you as well, Alex.
Yeah, I love your confidence that you're going for Beyonce's throne, Gina.
We're coming for you.
Let's go, Gina.
I just want to be a friend, really. I just quite like to grab a coffee.
Someone asked this question, and I got 2 more questions, and then I'll pass it to and I'll ask one more thing to Mark. And maybe just one quick tip, Gina. You're singing. What's your songwriting tip?
Okay.
I was asking, because she's a singer, what's your songwriting tip? What's the one thing you're like, cool, boom, do this?
Yeah.
especially with your background in terms of trying to dethrone Beyonce?
Wow, I feel like there's been a lot of weight on this answer now. Yeah, in all seriousness, my songwriting tip, if you're wanting to write a song, you've got to really, really focus and spend a lot of time on what you actually want that song to say. You've got to almost find the gap. You've got to find something that nobody else is talking about and talk about it and like start a conversation about it. That's obviously what we do when we talk about our faith in our music. But it could be about anything. Just find a gap, find something that nobody's talking about and something that you're passionate about, and then just write music about it. That would be my tip.
Amazing. Great. Mark, I'm going to ask you this question because I know Gina spoke about this and Sammy spoke about this as well. Someone asked us on YouTube. I might have not been here to hear, but how did you decide to follow God? What made you follow God? Real quick. Why did you...
I grew up in a Christian family and kind of went through the motions for most of my life without really allowing it to affect me. I kind of, I'd heard about God, I'd heard about Jesus, and I was like, yeah, great, cool. And it kind of got to the point where I was like, and Jesus died for you, and I was like, fine, like, all right, like, what does that do? I don't know. Okay, great. And I kind of got to the point where I was just almost like apathetic, as in like I had no reaction. It had no change in my life. I had no reaction. And then I went to a festival called Soul Survivor, which is like 12,000 teenagers camping in a muddy field. I was like, that sounds pretty sick. So I went and went with a few friends from a youth group, and it completely changed my life because it's the first time that I sort of witnessed like 12,000 other teenagers, like actually like people my age, like interacting with Jesus and letting it change their life. And there was something different about these people. And I was like, right, okay, I think I've been sleeping on this. I need to get in on this. I need to do something about it. I need to allow this in. And from that day, like, things started to move and things started to change in my life. And it was literally that moment of being like, right, today I'm going to let this affect me. I'm going to like, and I, as if I had the control, but this was like my viewpoint of it. I was like, right, this time I'm going to investigate. I'm going to ask questions, like the question we had from the question from Soulbox, like, ask these big questions, start to unpack it, like, what does it mean? I don't want to just blindly follow. I want to be in, and I want to be all in. So start to investigate, ask questions, and eventually found out for myself that it's true. It's real, that there's a God that exists, that loves me, that does miracles, that changes lives, that completely transformed me from a right mug to a more manageable mug. Like, and like, so, like, God does amazing things. He does amazing things, and he's done awesome things in my life, and he absolutely can do the same thing for you too. Question who's listening, that wasn't a go at Daniel, but he can do amazing things.
Nice one.
Even in a 30-year-old.
Do you still stand by having us with you today, Daniel?
Oh man, I'm rotating you next. I'm rotating you. Yeah.
Hilarious.
I feel like I got more energy than the three of you anyway, so.
Oh, Grandpa throwing shots. Hey.
Sammy, we'll talk afterwards. Don't worry. Afterwards. That's amazing. Someone said, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but I'll say out here. Someone said, I'd love to have good news during lockdown because lockdown has been a bit stressful, and I feel like a lot of people have felt it. I felt that as well. Just the stress, the maybe anxiety, just the like, what's going on? And this good news is available for everyone, isn't it? This good news is available for everyone. This hope is available for everyone. This peace is available for everyone. This love is available for everyone. This life is available for everyone, like Mark said. And that is available because of what Jesus did. That even though we had rebelled against God and deserved separation forever, he made a way, and that's Jesus, the perfect path, the perfect way. Even like when Sammy said, when Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, the life, that's who Jesus is. Jesus is all of those things. So he made it possible for us to be reconnected with God again, to have true life, true love, true peace, true joy, which is only found in Jesus and Jesus alone. And he made it possible through his death and his resurrection. Jesus dies on the cross, the death that we couldn't live. The death that we couldn't take because it's a horrible death, the death that we deserved. Jesus takes it upon himself, and then Jesus comes back to life, defeating all of those things and giving us an opportunity to join in this friendship with him, in this life to the full with him. The only thing we need to do is repent, which is switching up, turning around, turning from 180 degree, from being part of the problem and being part of the rebellion to being part of what God is calling you to be, being part of the solution. And that is the good news. And that is available for everyone. And maybe if you're watching this, maybe you've made a decision at some point, or probably on one of our live shows, maybe you've been to a higher tour gig and you made a decision. You're one of those people that stood up and said, yes, I want this life. I want to follow Jesus. Then shout out to you guys. Nice one. Well done. Maybe this is the first time you're hearing this, and this is available for you. And if that's something that you want to do, if you want to follow Jesus, just write it down in the comments. Say, yes, I want to do that. Send us a DM. Say, you know what? I was watching your webinar. I was watching your live on YouTube, and I want to be part of this. Tell me more. Let us know, because we want to chat with you. We want to really join this adventure with you, because it is an adventure. Following Jesus is not, it's not a boredom thing. It's not a boring thing. It's entering into this life in all of its fullness adventure, and knowing that during the good times and the bad times that he is there with you. Guys, thank you so much for joining in. Thank you so much, Gina, Sammy, and Mark. Really appreciate you giving your evening to be part of this. If you want to join the webinar next week, make sure you just, make sure you follow all of the socials, follow OTC, Brightline, Amongst Wolves, and Soulbox. Make sure you see the link in the description in the bio to join the webinar. Thank you so much. We love you guys. You are amazing. God loves you. Any last words, guys?
See you next week.
See you next week.
See you next time, guys.